Enough is enough. My family can't be robbed from another day without seeing Kilmar.
A plea from the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and a high-profile trip from Maryland U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen. The Prince George's County man's deportation isn't the only immigration case making national headlines. There are other stories, both here in Maryland and across the country. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Newton. Welcome to 11 TV Hill. This issue of immigration is not a new one, but the case against Kilmar Abrego Garcia is becoming a political firestorm. So much so that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to see Abrego Garcia's condition for himself. Although ICE initially ruled Abrego Garcia is being mistakenly deported, the White House fought against his return here to the U.S. His case, like others in recent months, is putting a spotlight on immigration policy. And this morning, we want to take a big picture approach to the legal questions facing immigration attorneys. And joining us now is attorney Rachel Girod. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm guessing you have been busy. What are some of the questions that an immigration lawyer has gotten, I guess, since January now?
Yeah, if you can think it, I've gotten the question.
Yeah.
Everything from is now a bad time to naturalize, even though I'm a green card holder married to a U.S. military member, to my case was decided a couple of years ago. Is that going to be a ruling that's honored now?
With someone who may have questions like this, from your standpoint, should they feel secure in the country as far as their status as being able to stay?
I mean, that answer has evolved since November, and I think November and December we were seeing a lot of uptick in people coming and asking to have a consultation with an immigration attorney to just get a feel for what the landscape was going to be. And at the time, the advice was, we got to take this day by day. We'll watch for changes in the law. Right now, this is what the law is, and therefore this is what you can rely on. But then as we saw January turn into February, February into March, that's evolved to this is what the law is one reality. But then what is possible to happen to you is a separate one. And that's a really bizarre position to be in as a U.S. officer of the court, to be having the law not correspond with what reality is, to be having people detained in spite of orders otherwise, to be having people brought thousands of miles away from their family to a state in another circuit where the law is different than it is where they're from. It's just a very bizarre situation and something I didn't imagine that only a couple years into my legal career I'd already be confronting.
Right, and also for the people in question, I'm guessing that they all thought they had their ducks in a row, so why question it? Why even feel like this could be an issue,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are feeling like, am I a chump for having availed myself of some sort of process? Am I a chump for having paid taxes for the last 30 years without getting anything back in terms of not being eligible for that? I mean, most people don't know that most undocumented immigrants in the United States do pay taxes. They're not eligible for the same benefits that Americans or green card holders are, so they're actually a net positive on the economy. And now the IRS is making deals with ICE to release tax information to ICE, and you have people who have only been trying to do the right thing who are now wondering if they have put themselves right in ICE's hand.
The Abrego Garcia case isn't yours, but I'm sure you've been watching it like all of us. What stands out to you as some of the sticking points in this case, and what happens now?
What happens now is, I think, one of the scariest things. I mean, I see Abrego Garcia is sort of standing in the place of all of us in this country. I think that when we look away from his case is when this administration can go as far as they want. So I think that keeping the press on this case, keeping the attention on him is really important, because his removal from this country was unlawful. And the administration, I keep seeing statements from the White House saying that he was here illegally in the United States. That's not true. He had a lawful order granting him protection in the United States. And that specific order was that the court should never return him, or the government should never return him to El Salvador. That's the one country where they returned him to. The removal was unlawful. His presence in the United States was lawful, just as lawful as mine is. Even though it's on a different basis, it is the same law. So to be able to remove him and not have to go and correct the mistake opens up the door to removing anybody from the United States. And as fear-mongering as that sounds, I think that it's unfortunately a reality we have to contend with.
Got about 40 or so seconds left. If I'm someone watching the show now and I have, some worries about my immigration status, what should step one be for me right now?
Have a consult with your immigration attorney. Seek out an immigration attorney. I think that the best way to find one is by usually word of mouth, because unfortunately there can be a lot of unethical practices
Sure.
around immigration. But if you can get somebody who you trust, who's had a good experience with an attorney, go and talk to them. They should be able to give you an honest assessment of your case. That's what we do at my office. We'll tell people if they don't have a good case, we'll be honest, we'll give that assessment. But I think that that's the best thing you can do to have a real sense of what could happen.
Okay, I sense you will be busy the next few weeks. Good to see you, Rachel.
Nice to
Thank
see
you
you.
for coming by.